So the elite men and the first wave of the masses are off here at the 2016 TCS New York City Marathon. Staten Island, the place of the start. Almost 200 baggage vehicles will take over the bags to the finish line. For some of these runners, they're going to be out there a fair few hours. Our elite men, we expect them to be around about the 2:10, if not inside 2:10 marker. As you can see, some of the paces out there, the 3-hour paces, so crucial to some of the first-time runners out there. But now, most people have those gadgets and gizmos on their wrist telling them their every stride, where their pace is. As you can see on the right-hand screen, the women's field has started to thin down slightly. There's still a large pack there, and the men look like they've gone off at a slightly quicker tempo than the ladies did. And it is Deba at the front. Said earlier that she's a local, lives in the Bronx, and twice second here. So she's in fairly decent shape, and she will definitely want to go one step higher on the podium than she's been before. Behind her, Joyce Kipkurui, who I said earlier, third in Boston. She's the former Commonwealth Games 10,000 meter champion, so good pedigree on the track. And that fluent, efficient running stride and style of Mary Keitany on the left of the screen. So they're 30 minutes into their race now, so the next split we get will be the 10-kilometer split, and we'll look to see an increase in tempo from that 18:40 first 5k split. And it looks as if, just by the cadence of the runners and the fact that some runners are starting to drop off the pace, including the Olympic triathlon champion Jorgensen, you can just see a slight gap back, the tall figure of the tall striding American. There's still a lot of running through in there. Sarah Hall just getting on to the back of that lead women's pack.
Yes, you mentioned Deba there about her residency in New York City. She's actually the New York female marathon record holder, strictly an unofficial record, of course, but there's never been a faster female New York City resident at the marathon. Ritson Hines striding out.
Well, it's interesting, he wasn't afraid to do this in the Great North Run a few weeks back. He went straight to the front there and he tested out Mo Farah for pretty much an hour. And it wasn't until they got onto the final seafront that Mo Farah was able to put that track speed to good use. But Ritson Hines himself, no slouch on the track. He's a sub-13-minute 5k runner, and his longevity has been very impressive. The 33-year-old still mixing it, and he would love to go inside his personal best of 2:7:47. As the women just jostling for position. As you can see, they're spread across the road. Again, that could be a sign of the slightly breezy conditions at the race tape. You can see in the background, just moving from side to side. There's Molly Huddle in the middle of that group, looking very comfortable, looking at her watch, just smiling. Deba on the right is our leader, but that pack is very strong at the moment, and still no one's really put the hammer down. So we'll get the 10-kilometer split now as we leave the women's race to go to a commercial break, and join us back after the break.
In the women's wheelchair race, 1:21:31, she went through 20 miles in. Manuela Schär of Switzerland in second place. She came through 20 miles in 1:22:38, so she is more than a minute adrift here of the American, who is on her way to yet another victory in the women's race in New York. Amanda McGrory has just also come through 20 miles in 1:24:41, so she is some significant distance behind Schär. So McFadden, Schär and McGrory, 1, 2 and 3 in the women's race at the moment.
Well, interesting about McFadden that she didn't do the marathon at the Paralympics. She won 6 Paralympic gold medals, but all on the track, so she could well be fresh in comparison to the others out there that have done multiple marathons. But that doesn't seem an issue for Marcel Hug at the moment, because he is absolutely flying out on the course, and he could well be our first finisher, and he will be our first finisher, barring disaster across the finish line. But he is in hot pursuit. Kurt Fearnley's right with him as well, so that men's wheelchair has gone down to the wire on many occasions. I think it's twice inside 1 second has been decided, and on other occasions just 1 second has separated the top 2 finishers. But on the screen, coming up to the 2-mile mark, Dathan Rittenheim with the USA singlet, so easy to make out. I'm sure that will get him extra cheers out on the course as well. Stanley Biwott in the gold on the right of the screen.
Yes, it's certainly gone out in a very extravagant fashion, has Rittenheim at the moment, just coming down here, having gone through the high point of the bridge, and now this is that long downhill stretch into the 3rd kilometre. And Biwott, you can see he will be easy to spot this morning with that almost amber vest, back in the 2nd rank of athletes. But 2 Americans out in front, Rittenheim and Lano, 1 and 2. Rotich, you can see in that 2nd group, as well as Melissa Desisa, the 2:04.45 man from Ethiopia. But Matt Lano alongside Rittenheim there. Lano's a 2:12.28 man.
Yeah, it's part of the Northern Arizona distance project up there, and very colourful vests. They definitely stand out in the crowd. As we go back to the women's race, and they've started to go in slightly more of a single file, so whether Deborah's picked the pace up slightly.
Yes, having passed through 11 kilometres now, so Deborah out in front. Keitany still looking very strong there on the left-hand side of the screen, in a share of 3rd place. Mergia, the Ethiopian, over on the right, and you can just see Molly Huddle there in about 7th place at the back of this leading group. So at the moment, the double American track champion is looking very good indeed. And we talk about her track pass, but she's done very well at the half marathon, hasn't she? She's won here in New York, did that earlier this year in the New York City half marathon in a fast time. So it has been a gradual step up here to the marathon, but eventually, rather like jumping into the deep end in the swimming pool, she's got to do it, and she's doing it here in New York City. And Huddle at the moment looking pretty relaxed, although in all fairness, after 11 kilometres, if she does have any serious aspirations to win this race, you would expect her to look comfortable at the moment, because one thing we know about her is that at this level she's got plenty of speed in her legs.
Yeah, the athlete that ran an American record for 5,000 metres this year, and that 10,000 metre time getting on towards 30 minutes is pretty phenomenal running as well. So she should be fairly comfortable in the early stages, and a lot of it's about conserving energy and making sure that she stays switched on for the drink stations and is aware of the athletes around her. But she just wants to be ticking off these early miles and just being nice and conservative, not making too many additional surges in pace, because that sometimes happens when there's multiple leaders. Sometimes happens when there is undulations on the course. People tend to accelerate in and out of corners, but for Molly Huddle, she just wants to be as controlled as relaxable through these early miles.
Yes, you can see the ticker across the top there, keeping a record on the women behind these leaders. A group here now of 9, with an advantage of something like 15 or 20 metres on the next to the athlete. The tall athlete there in the middle of the field, with that slightly off pink vest, almost salmon pink vest, that is the Burundian Diane Nakuri. Here in the men's race, Marcel Hug going well. Out in front, Ernst van Dijk now. Very, very close to him indeed. And it's Hug there and Ernst van Dijk. Also there, Krikke Skabbert is going well. Simon Lawson, the American, bound in 4th place. There is Kurt Fearnley. You can see now. And Kurt Fearnley coming up on the outside. And can he get there, Fearnley, the Australian? It's very, very tight indeed. Well, it's not the best angle for us to tell. But I do believe that it may well have been Hoog who just hung on to take victory there. In fact, I should say Van Dijk, who's come through in that very, very close finish there in the men's race.
No, it was Marcel Hoog in the silver helmet. Absolutely flying at the end then. And we talked about close finishes earlier. We've talked about 2 finishes that have been inside a second. I think that's the third. It was that close at the end. It almost needed the photo finish team to be out there to get the result. But I think Marcel Hoog did just about get there. And what a phenomenal finish, Martin.
So meanwhile, the women have been going now for a little more than 3/4 of an hour.
And it's come up on our screen. This isn't the official result, but yeah, it is inside 1 second. It's come up as 0.96. Kurt Fearnley just being edged out in the men's wheelchair by Marcel Hoog, who's had an absolutely phenomenal year this year. The Swiss wheelchair athlete winning the Olympic gold in 1:26, but also winning in Chicago, Berlin and Boston. Absolutely phenomenal.
Well, let's just go through the names in this leading group of women. Busnesh Deba out in front. Joyce Chepkarui still in this leading group. Also there is Keitany. Keitany looking for yet another victory in New York. Sally Kipyego of Kenya. Helen Mayram of Ethiopia. We haven't mentioned her yet. She's also in that leading group. And here we can now review the finish here in this men's wheelchair race with Marcel Hoog out in front. And Fearnley coming up onto his shoulder. But Hoog just hanging on to beat the Australian.
It's an absolute dive for the line. The concentration, it came down to the last 2 meters. And Marcel Hoog, who has had an absolutely brilliant 2016, and he finishes it off in style.
So Abdi Rahman now out in front in this men's race. The men who've been going now for something like 20 minutes. They went through 5 kilometres of Ghebreslassie, the youngster, the man who was a teenager, won the world title. He's still just 20. He went through 5k in 15:17. Ritzenhein, you can see there in 2nd place. Also there is Lucas Rotich. Abdi Rahman, who's now made his way to the front. Stanley Biwott is there, Lelisa de Sissa. Moses Kipsiru, also in this leading group. But it's still a very large gathering towards the front of this field in the men's race. Ritzenhein on the right, Abdi Rahman there on the left.
So it's inside 5-minute mile in this early pace, which can often be a little bit slower on the New York course. So they've gone out at a healthy pace, and that was probably largely down to Ritzenhein going straight to the front and kind of just getting things kicked off, unlike the women's where the favourites kind of let 3 runners go. Seeing Nathan right there, it was a case of going with him, and that field has, and that 15-20 early split indicates that they're inside 2:10 pace at the moment. Still a lot of runners there, and you see a big gap back to the 2nd pack. So a lot of runners choosing to go in this lead pack. As you can see, they've gone through 4 miles and 19:50, so they've maintained that sub 5-minute pace.
Yes, Matt Yorno, one of the lesser-known Americans there, wearing the glasses just behind Ritzenhein. So Abdi Rahman, Ritzenhein, Yorno. The Americans certainly very prominent in the early stages of this men's race, but also there in this leading group as we go across the front of that field. De Cisa still showing prominently in this men's race. Also there is Yamamoto, the Japanese athlete. Lucas Rotich of Kenya. Ghirmay Ghebreslassie, we've already mentioned him, the world champion from Beijing. Ryan Bale of the United States also in this leading group. So plenty of Americans there. Bale, who has yet to break 2 hours 10. You can see Ghebreslassie, 2 from the right.
He's an interesting runner. He's only still 20 years of age. World champion last year. 4th in those Olympic Games, giving chase to the American Galen Rupp. And he's definitely someone to look out for in today's field. He's got a personal best from London this year. His 4th in the London Marathon in 2:7:46.
So here is Mary Keitany there on the right, seeking to become the first runner to win 3 straight New York City marathons since Greater Bites. Bites, though, you may recall, won 5 straight. Although that is now, what, 30 years ago, 1986, when she won the 5th of those races. But Keitany showing very, very prominently indeed at the front of this field in the women's race. So the first 2 from last year's women's race in the leading 3 at the moment, with Mary Keitany and Asalafek Mergia. That is Chep Karui, you can see, in 2nd place at the moment. A little bit of a gap back to Molly Huddle. The American's still going well, although she doesn't want to get caught in no woman's land. Would like to latch herself onto the back of this leading trio, but Keitany looking strong. There you can see Chep Karui in 2nd place, Mergia in 3, and Huddle working quite hard at the moment to try and bridge that gap.
Well, Mergia, who was 2nd here last year, so she's watching very carefully what Mary Keitany's doing, and you're really right, Martin. There is a gap back to Molly Huddle. It came from the drink station.
Yeah, that's Kim Conley.
So you can see Molly Huddle's still got her drink, so taking her time, so not rushing the hydration. And that's the most important thing, is not really rushing any kind of attacks or surges like this. It could well just be the fact that she's picked a bottle up, taken more of the time with it, and now she'd put her head down and slowly get her way back to this leading trio.
There certainly has been quite a surge at the front, I think, hasn't there, to splinter that leading group. Here you can see Molly Huddle. It has been, I suppose it would be fair to say, the woman from Providence, Rhode Island. They're up in north of New York.
Small-sized town. I ran track and cross-country all through junior high and high school there. Just to win my first marathon and have it be the New York City Marathon would be so surreal. I know I'm from upstate and it's not very much like the city, but it does feel like a home court advantage to me. It would be special if it was New York for sure.
Approaches the finish line as the 2015 United Airlines NYCF Women's Champion again. Molly Huddle ×2.
No, you have to do that distance twice back-to-back for the marathon, but I think just being a half marathon through the streets of New York, it's going to prepare me pretty well for the full distance. And it was kind of a dress rehearsal, and I thought of it that way when I was racing. Definitely been some ups and downs. I feel like after last year's World Championships, like, those downs weren't downs. That was a down.
Huddle was competing today in the World Championships in China in the 10,000-meter race. The 30-year-old was on pace to finish 3rd, but an early celebration knocked her from the podium.
That went kind of viral. It was kind of a really embarrassing moment. So just more of a psychological hurdle to get over. Once I got through that, it was kind of the ultimate test of bouncing back and just reassessing why you run and what's important to you, and kind of what you want your career to look like when everything's said and done. I guess I just want to be remembered for pushing the limits and for just being gritty, just being someone who toughs things out. I never would have thought I would have an American record, and be lucky enough to make that one with 2 Olympic teams, it's been rewarding, and I'm just happy to be still improving at this point. As long as you can use that passion and let it drive you, then you'll definitely have those moments where you surprise yourself too.
Well, she talks in terms of being gritty and having to toughen things out, James. So you're going to have to do it here, because that is now a gap of something like 40 metres behind the leading trio. She in turn has got an advantage of what? Something like the same, perhaps even a little bit further, maybe 40 or 50 metres to the athletes behind her. She doesn't really want to be running on her own at this sort of tempo for too long. You may well have seen her there in the film doing a lot of her own running on her own, which is what many athletes do, but not at anything like the tempo she's got to run now.
Yeah, and it depends what she's been planning for also mentally. I mean, they're coming towards the hour mark, and I would have thought she might have had it in her race plans to have definitely been with the leaders at the halfway and beyond that. I mean, they often talk about the marathon starting at 18 to 20 miles. So with already a gap, as you said, she does train a lot on her own, but I'm sure she would have expected to be with this leading trio. But that could well represent the pace that has increased, and obviously the quality that's there at the front. I mean, athletes that have run inside 2:20, but they're also seasoned marathon runners, and that could well be the difference. And the pace, yeah, the pace has upped, and they are running towards 5:06 mile pace, and they've gone from that early pace that was just inside or around about the 6-minute mark to 5-minute mark. So that's why there's a splinter in the field, and that could well be either the fact that Molly Huddle can't keep up with the pace, or she could just well be pacing it better.
Well, Matt Yorno still sticking there to Dathan Ritzenhein, 1 and 2 in the men's race, making their way towards 10 kilometres. I can tell you that the women's wheelchair race will be reaching its conclusion in the next minute or so. Tatiana McFadden out in front with a very significant lead. It's almost 2 minutes over Manuela Schär there of Switzerland in the women's race, so we'll be going back to join them very, very shortly indeed. But it's Ritzenhein out in front in the men's race. Yorno there in second place. De Cisa is now in third, and here we go with Tatiana McFadden out on her own. Yet another victory in New York. I'm afraid we can't bring you the clock, there's no graphic on the screen, but I think we can work on the basis that she's going to be very, very close to 1:45, something like that here. It's a very good performance indeed.
It's a phenomenal performance, and if she does obviously take this title, that'll be the 5th time she's won here in New York, and it's a dominant performance, isn't it, Martin?
Yep. She's been out in front on her own for quite a while now. She's just built and built and built that advantage on Manuela Schär there of Switzerland. McFadden went through 25 miles in 1:42.35. That lead of almost 2 minutes. So McFadden, only herself and the clock to compete against in the latter stages here, the last few metres. The clock ticking on, and you can see there she's been going, what, about 1:47, 1:48, so it's not going to be one of her quicker victories, but it is certainly among the most impressive. So Tatiana McFadden wins the New York City Marathon again.
A dominant second half, fantastic push in there. And to come from the Paralympics to New York and make it 5 times a victor here. Amanda McGlory winning in 2011, but 2010, 2013, 14, 15, and today making it a fantastic 5 for McFadden. And back to the elite men's field. They've been consistently inside 5 minutes per mile for the first 6 miles as they head towards the next split. I think will be the 7-mile split on the tracker that people are following various runners on. from the elite to the masses out there on the course. As you can see, Rotic in the centre of the screen, with a multicoloured variety of shoes on show there. Loud noise from the crowd. Kipsiro, the Ugandan, on the left. He had a fantastic track pedigree and stepped up to the marathon in Frankfurt. Only 2:15. That surprised a number of people in the know. Expected him to go a little bit faster, so he'll be looking to improve on that. And that is the thing now in marathons around the world. This is one of the marathon majors, but there are so many top quality marathons on show that there is a lot to choose from and a lot of planning for athletes, agents and coaches, especially in relation to that number of marathons that an athlete does have potentially in them per year.
Well, I think the big story here is Stanley Biwott, who, as you can see him right in the background, is something like 30 or 40 metres off the pace so early. He's only been going there for 10 kilometres, and Biwott's race looks pretty much run so early on here. So, the defending champion, and you can just see him there in the background, that orange vest, that is Stanley Biwott, a long way behind the rest and beginning to look a little bit laboured.
You're right, Martin, he does look laboured. Can't imagine, we haven't seen anything or heard anything about him tripping up or having a problem at a drink station. And they've gone through in almost identical splits through 10k. So the first 5 kilometres was just inside 15:20, and the second 5 kilometre split almost exactly the same as that. So even pace running at the front, but that would be a huge surprise if the defending champion Stanley Biwott was to be in trouble so early on.
Well, it's something of a sweeping statement, but if you've got a bib which has only got a number on it, it means in some part you're not worthy of having your name on it. They certainly are not regarded as being among the more prominent athletes in this race. So let me put a few names to numbers. 246, that's Tadesse Ye-Darby of Ethiopia. 246. I could also see 241 Wukene Seyum Aboy of Ethiopia as well. So he is also in that leading group. And Musa Babo Ido, look out for 210. I think that's the yellow vest there, 3 from the left. That looks rather like Babo Ido to me, but it's Ritzenhein out in front. And Biwott, well, that's what, 30 metres, something like that? Perhaps it was a little bit premature to say his race is run yet, but the way he's struggling back there rather suggests that not all has gone smoothly for him inside this opening 10 kilometres. We'll try and get some news as to whether there was a fall or a problem at a drinks table. In this women's race, Keitany, Chepkarui and Murgia, and it's a gap now of something like 15 seconds back to Molly Huddle. Now, Huddle, the first of the Americans, but are you perhaps a little bit disappointed that so early in the race she finds herself effectively out of it?
Well, she might not be quite out of it yet. The marathon is a long journey out there, and the fact they're running sort of 5:08 miles, and they've done that for the last few miles, is brisk running at this point. They've not gone through the halfway mark. We just saw them pass the 12-mile mark in around about 66 minutes. So I'm interested to see the halfway mark, but it really does show. Look at the fall maybe of Keitany, and already there's another gap back to Murgia there, so it could well be a 2-horse race already. But as I've said, there's a long way to go yet in this New York City Marathon.
Yes, at 12 miles, Huddle 27 seconds behind the 2 leaders here. And you can see what the visual gap is. It's rather foreshortened by that camera angle, but that is Huddle. You can just see in the background, just beneath the ticker running across the top of the screen. So Keitany on the left, out in front. That is in second place, Joyce Chepkarui. Chepkarui, winner of the Amsterdam Marathon a little over a year ago, when she knocked a huge amount of time off her lifetime best. She ran 2:24.11. Now, being able to run that sort of time certainly makes you a contender here, But that was certainly a big step up for her, and I think her performance here is another significant improvement. But bear in mind, she has yet to reach halfway. Huddle running alone, as she has done now for quite a significant period of time, and it can't be that good for her running at this sort of tempo, but she doesn't really have too much choice over the matter at the moment. But she's still looking reasonably relaxed, or as relaxed as you can be.
Yeah, she's maintaining her pace. She's running around about sort of 5:20 a mile, so that's why she's kind of lost about 10 seconds per mile over the last couple of miles. But she'll just be taking her time. I would have thought that the halfway point will be a welcome sign, and especially if she starts to see Mergia coming back to her, because there's definitely now a gap between our two leaders out there, Keitany, Kipkurui. And so she does start to close down on third. And interesting, you can just see a little bit of tape down on the on her left leg. So that will be a little bit of strapping for something. So that could either be her Achilles or her calf. So whether she has got a slight issue coming into this, you never know. There's a lot of miles to be put in, a lot of transition from the track to the road, from 10,000 metres on the track to the marathon distance. So we haven't heard of any issues in the media with her preparation. We heard from the camp that preparation seemed to be going well.
The unofficial split suggesting, though, that she's losing time on the road. 20 kilometres reached. That's just gone past now, and Huddle now has slipped 36 seconds behind the leaders, Keitany and Kipkurui. So Keitany and Kipkurui going through 20 kilometres in 69.04. Mergia in third, Huddle in fourth, Kipyego is now in fifth, Nakuri of Burundi is in sixth, Bujnesh Diba of Ethiopia, vastly experienced on this manner, so to speak, is in seventh, and Temesgen of Ethiopia in eighth. Kim Conley is the next American in ninth place, just ahead of Sarah Hall.
Yeah, Kipkurui, who actually ran the United Airlines, New York City half marathon, and that was the race where she just got pipped by Molly Huddle. But yeah, I think that win last year at the Amsterdam Marathon, I think that put her in good stead, and 2:24 on that course is very good running as well. So she comes off the back of third in the Boston Marathon as well. So some good marathon pedigree there. Again, she's an athlete. We talk about that transition from track as the Commonwealth Games 10,000 metre champion to the road, and she's done it fairly successfully now. And those two look really relaxed as they come towards what next will be the 13-mile and then the halfway mark. And they have been running very controlled but very brisk. Last 5 kilometre split will be very interesting as well, as they've got gradually faster. 18 minutes for that first 5k, then 17 minutes and 10 seconds for the second 5k, and it was inside 17 for the third of the 5k split. So if we pull up the 20k split, it's 69.04. So yes, the quickest of the day. That makes it around about 16:30 for that third of that fourth 5k split out on the road.
Yes, it's something like 2:25 pace at the moment, isn't it? Although, if you bear in mind that we won't see miles as slow as the first one, it's likely to pick up that little bit more. So maybe we're looking at a winning time if they maintain this sort of tempo in the sort of 2:24, something like that. There you can see, as in the background, the athletes just further down the field, just leaving the start area. Back at Staten Island, Abdirahman going to the front of the field in the men's race, where things, well, certainly rather more settled at the moment. Stanley Biwott, well, has made up a little bit of ground. You can see the amber, tangerine, call it what you will, that orangey coloured vest just in the background, the defending champion. Ghebreslassie, the young world champion, just tucked in behind Abdirahman and Ritzenheim.
Abdirahman's had a long career, 38 years young now, and multiple Olympic Games and He's always a strong presence on the US road running scene, came through the NCAA system, like many of the American runners. And as you said earlier, some of the athletes without names on their bibs, so there'll be interesting runners. That there's a strong Ethiopian community here of distance runners, and so they will probably be training with a lot of the runners that we see involved in today's race. And it does mean that they probably won't have their own elite drinks, so they'll be taking the other drinks that are on offer for all of the masses out there. But interesting, they're still mixing it with that elite field, so could well be justifying a spot in the elite field for 2017. As we see the masses on the screen, 50,000 starters today. As the women have gone through the halfway mark now. So that halfway split was 73 minutes for the women. So, or 72:38, so a little bit faster than the 73 minutes being predicted for them. So at the moment that brings them home in around about the 2:25 mark, but we know they've been traveling a lot faster in the last 4 to 5 miles. So if we compare that to the halfway split when the record was set, it was 72:07 for Margaret Okero in 2003. So at the moment they're getting towards course record pace, Martin.
Yes, and also we did get a significant graphic, a rare graphic there, showing us the gap between Keitany and the American Molly Huddle, and it's now almost a minute. 56, 57 seconds, something like that. Margaret Okero, yes, the course record holder here. And we do stress that the New York Marathon isn't really about times. They've abandoned the whole idea of pacemakers, did do some time ago. The course doesn't lend itself to being quite as quick as courses such as Berlin, for example, which is widely regarded as the world record course at the moment. But anything that's certainly on the sharper side of 2:24 here by the women would be very impressive indeed. And we've seen this before from Keitany, haven't we? Where she goes out, really takes the race by the scruff of the neck. Doesn't always work. We've seen the wheels come off in the past for her. Of course, she's got a very good pedigree, so on many occasions she's gone out there and stayed out there. But it's certainly a very bold move, and certainly at the moment an indicator that she must be feeling very strong indeed. So Keitany now kicking on ahead, leaving Joyce Chepkarui, the Amsterdam Marathon winner from a little more than 12 months ago, and that is now a gap of 10, 11, 12 seconds. So I think it's fair to say there are now just 2 women on the course within a minute of Mary Keitany.
Yeah, and they've now moved in to Queens, so good amount of noise again out on the course, and there is a slight gap. Mary Keitany going through 14 miles, and the splits, as we said, have been getting closer and closer to the course record pace, and the pace from the half to that 14 mile point 5:09, so continuing to run almost metronomic 5:08s, 5:09 pace, and she does really look good out on the roads in New York. So we're going for a commercial break. Join us back after for the New York City Marathon, with a very strong elite men's pack on the field. Dathan Rittenheim on the right of the screen with the USA jersey. He's led them through the 10 miles, split in 49:09, so operating around about the 2:09 mark. So outside course record pace, Jeffrey Mutai, who went through 15 kilometers in 45:13 when he broke the record, and they went through 15 kilometers in 45:51, and that represents a slight increase in pace, and that 5 kilometer split 15 minutes and 14 seconds, so maintaining the pace at the moment. And right in the centre, we were looking out to see if he was settled in that lead group. The defending champion, Stanley Biwott, is still there, Martin.
Yes, although apparently there was no particular event which appears to have happened. But he, at one point, was 30 or 40 metres off the pack. He's now got himself onto the back of it. But most of the reports we're getting down from the road suggest that he's not looking particularly comfortable. But it remains to be seen. But Biwott is now, at least, latched on to that field. Although, in fact, that's not him there, is it?
Well, so it is a Biwott, but it's the wrong Biwott.
It's not the Biwott we're looking for. The man there in the... that's more the salmon pink vest rather than the tangerine vest. So Stanley Biwott, who had got himself onto the back of the field, has now gone altogether.
It's Shadrach Biwott, the athlete sharing the same surname, but it's not going to be the day for the defending champion. So Stanley Biwott will be deeply disappointed not to have even lasted it this long into the course. So,
and I can confirm he is actually off the road. He has stepped off the road. Happened about 15 kilometres apparently when we weren't showing that particular part of the race. But Biwott, who appeared to be in trouble, has now formally stepped out of the race.
So Rotich on the left of the screen there. Lucas Rotich. So trains in Iton, looking very relaxed, very short stride compared to Rittenheim on the right of the screen. Yamamoto with the arm warmers and sunglasses, also looking fairly controlled at the moment. Adi Rachman there on the left of the screen in the glasses. Back to Mary Keitany, and she's in perfect isolation at the moment. So Keitany going 16 miles, so over the Queensborough Bridge now, heading from Queens into Manhattan. One of the quietest spots on the course, this, Martin, so loads of support prior to it, and she'll be getting more support after the bridge.
Yes, it's rather like out of the tunnel and into the light, isn't it, and into the roar. It's apart from the rumble of the motorbike engines and one or two other peripheral noises, Keitany not hearing too much, and certainly not too much noise from spectators on the course, because they will be waiting towards the end of this bridge. But now Keitany, who it was, what, 6 years ago when she went out very, very early indeed and appeared to be running on her way to victory, only for the wheels to come off her challenge. Of course, since then she's gone on to win the race. But there will be one or two people looking back to that performance in 2010 and perhaps looking back at that run in 2010 and just maybe marking quite where things did come apart for her. But Mary Keitany, as she looks across there to the skyline of Manhattan, she'll be feeling very confident indeed, I would have thought, at this point. And certainly no sign at the moment that there is anyone making any sort of bold move. Keitany coming through 15 miles in 1:22.30, and that is 20 seconds ahead of Chep Karui. Huddle, she too has come through that point, but she is now 1 minute and 40 seconds behind Keitany, so that is a huge difference.
Yeah, there's a big gap there. It looks as if Sally Kipyego and Molly Huddle are together giving chase. So they've gone past Mergier there, who's dropped back after going with those leaders. But Mary Keitany, 20 seconds at the moment, looks a really, really strong lead. So as I said earlier, there's been a lot going on this week.
They have a night of champion. The pasta dinner the night before feeds 1,500. Tatiana McFadden teaches some of the...
So you can see loads of work with the local communities, with the schools. It's a multicultural festival this week. As I said, it starts 8 days before, and it doesn't finish today. It even goes on to tomorrow. The TCS New York City Marathon Pavilion has been a huge hit this year. So serving the pasta parties, you can see a conga as well. People really enjoying the atmosphere, and it really is a celebration of running and people being active. And I said, there's been something for absolutely everybody. And talking about the masses, look at them. So many charities represented, over 300 charities. I think it's into the 20s of millions of pounds raised per year for charities, and over the 46 years of the New York City Marathon, there has been so many worthwhile causes helped through. So many runners out there pounding the streets, earning money for charity, and for a lot of them that gets them out on those long runs through those summer mornings, summer evenings as the winter draws in, keeps their focus on why they're out there. And so many different stories of triumph over disaster, and so many people running with friends, family, and if they are running on their own, their friends and family are out there cheering them on. So it's a great atmosphere. I do recommend it if you get a chance to go there for New York City Marathon weekend. It is fantastic.
Let's just talk across pictures for a couple of moments, shall we? And Mary Keitany looking very, very strong. You can see her closest pursuer a good 60 or 70 metres behind her. Stanley Biwott ran very, very fast earlier this year when he finished second in London. He ran, what, 2:3:51. I mean, world-class performance. But since then, he's dropped out twice, Olympic marathon and now this. I mean, does that spell the end for a marathon runner at this level?
I think someone like Stanley, he's only 30 years of age, so he's got time on his hands. He's not done in terms of marathon running, but he has been very consistent in the major city marathons. And you know, having watched him a lot over the last few years, when he does run, he's always given 100%. A couple of times the wheels came off in London. He didn't quite run as fast as he wanted to. This year, he did run phenomenally well, ran inside 2 hours and 4. And then went to the Olympics, and there was talk, obviously, the issues with the water bottles and his feed stations. But whether it's something different to that's caused this today, but he'll be deeply disappointed. But I expect to see Stanley Biwott back.
Well, Mary Keitany, they're looking for 3 straight victories. There you can see Greta Weitz, who completed... Well, she actually dominated the race, didn't she, towards the end of the 70s and throughout the 80s. And Mary Keitany here looking to do this in an entirely different era.
Yeah, you can't really see someone winning this 9 times with the quality of athletes out there. But what Mary Keitany's looking to do today, she'll be equaling the modern-day record of Paula Radcliffe. Paula herself was phenomenally dominant here, winning 3 times. 2 of her wins were within 1 second of each other, and the other was around about 45 seconds slower. So consistent running by Paula, and at the moment Mary Keitany out there doing something very, very similar. And look at that, 3-4 deep on the advertising boarding on the side.
And having made her kick before coming over to Manhattan, she's now here. There's bound to be euphoria with all the noise coming from the crowds, and it's what, 4, 5, 6 deep you can see there alongside or behind the railings. But she's still got an awfully long way to go. I mean, the actual finish area, geographically, as the crow flies, is only just over to her left, really. You could almost walk there. But Keitany still has got a fair amount of real estate to cover, something like 10 miles to the finish here, and who knows whether memories of 6 years ago will be eating away at the back of her brain. But she's been in this position before and been unable to see it through.
Yeah, it is interesting when they do come off the bridge that there is a slight downhill section, and if they are in a pack, sometimes the emotions and the noise of the crowd and the fact they get that slight kick off means that things can start to happen in the race. And Mary Keitany's split, or the timing from 15.5 to 16 miles, was 5:01, so it shows that she definitely got a slight boost there but the fact she looks that controlled at the moment, I don't see that being much of an issue. And that's Lukas Rotic, and he's looking very good at the front there. So they've gone through 20 kilometers at the moment in the men's race, and it's starting to break up slightly. They have just gone through a drink stop, or drink station I should say, for some. They don't want to be stopping obviously, and just taking a look round, just sizing up each other. So 20 kilometers they've just gone through in 61:08. So looking at that in comparison to the other splits, and again very, very consistent. So that makes it 15:17, Martin, for that last 5 kilometers. So they've gone 15:19, 15:18, 15:14 and 15:17. You can set your watch by these guys.
Yes, and Rotic, he's certainly got the pedigree here to go on and win this race. For starters, he does a lot of his training with Eliud Kipchoge, who is the preeminent marathon runner of the current day, having won the Olympic title and of course running so fast in London earlier this year. Well, Rotic has won on the road in New York, indeed in Central Park. He won a 10k there back in May. He's won a marathon this year at Lake Biwa in Japan, and he has got a fast time over the marathon distance, 2:07.18, and we're probably looking here at a winning time in the sort of 2.5s, 2.6s, and he's just one of that leading group of, what is it, 9 now. But Rotic, just another name that you can chuck into the mix. Ghebreslassie, you can see there in the middle. It's Ritzenhein, the American, who's done an awful lot of work so far, over on the right. And I guess of the big names, perhaps it's just Stanley Biwott, the defending champion, who isn't there. And if you are just joining our coverage here on Eurosport, well, he pulled out, did Biwott, for the second straight marathon. He did it in Rio at the Olympic Games. He's done it here in New York, and he has pulled off onto the side of the road after just 15 kilometres. But this is the leading group in the men's race, and they've now been going just a touch over 1 hour, 1:03.29.30. You can see the clock there in the top left-hand corner as they make their way towards the halfway mark.
Yeah, Rotic looking very controlled. And slight incline there. Always tests out a few of the runners. Kipsero on the right of the screen. So that slightly rocking and rolling arm action as they just drive up, and it is Ghebreslassie. So the 20-year-old Eritrean, so world champion from last year. 4th in Rio, 4th in the London Marathon. So he'll be desperate to get on the podium today. And Lalisa de Caesar just behind him. So he's one of the most consistent marathon runners out at the moment. Twice the Boston Marathon champion. And there is the halfway mark. And they've gone through inside 64.5 minutes. So at the moment operating just on the high end of 2:08 marathon pace. So if you compare that to the course record of Jeffrey Mutai, he went through the halfway in 63.18. So unless they have a big negative split, which means the second half would be a lot faster than the first, I think that course record is safe for today. But there's still a lot of numbers there, so you can well see a quick second half as the racing really begins.
Yeah, we're probably looking at a winning time somewhere around about 2:08, aren't we? Ghebreslassie, you can see kicking on. Another name we haven't mentioned too much recently is Yamamoto, the Japanese. You can see him back in that second group now, the second pairing, back in 5th place. He's running just his second marathon here, came 3rd in his first, and that was back at home in the Far East at Beppu when he ran 2:11. But young Ghebreslassie, just 20, world champion, kicking on, making it a very honest clip, to say the least, out in front. And it's Ghebreslassie alongside de Caesar, the Ethiopian, and Lukas Rotic.
The fact it's breaking up is probably to do with the fact that the pace has dropped from around about the 4:50 mark to around about 4.5 minutes. So that's a substantial increase in pace. And as you can see, the gap has opened up very quickly. And as the race hottens up, the arm warmers come off some of these lead runners. They get chucked off. And that looks like the race has started, Martin.
Well, it is, isn't it? Not so much rolling up your sleeves as rolling them down and getting rid of them. Meanwhile, Keitany, 27 kilometres, 1:35. She's going to be on her feet, you would have thought, but, well, certainly well over 40 more minutes to come. 45 minutes, something like that, maybe a little bit more. But Keitany appears to be, at the moment, on her way to victory, but bear in mind, an awful lot can happen in the last 10 kilometres of a marathon, and we've seen it happen to Keitany before, 6 years ago, when she had herself a big lead. But I guess the difference is here, is there anyone in arrears behind her who you'd have thought has the ability to get up and alongside and pass this woman, even if maybe she does slow down in the last 5 kilometres?
Well, she's inside an hour of running now, so probably looking at around about the 50-minute, if not inside that, of running. So the gap coming up on the screen to Kipkurui, so 1:33.01. That was through 17 miles. So that last mile for her was 5:07. And if you compare that to Kipkurui giving chase, who was 5:27, Martin, that probably indicates that that gap is not closing.
Yes, and also let's bring you up to date on Molly Huddle, because so much was made of her debut at this event. Well, I reckon there might be 1 or 2 alarm bells ringing for her. She has lost an awful lot of distance now. She's down into 4th place. Sally Kipyego has passed her and moved something like 12 seconds ahead. 1:35.25, so she is now almost 2.5 minutes behind Keitany. So the indications are that Huddle is really beginning to hurt, and it's an awfully long way to go for her. But Keitany looking smooth, 1:33, so we're looking at a winning time somewhere in the 1:25s or something like that. Well, as we were saying, she does have something like 45 to 50 minutes left on the road.
And look at that, it is a sea of runners out there. And from a sea of runners to just one runner, supported by the police on motorbikes, it's Mary Keitany. So that gap, 52 seconds. Back to Joyce Kipkurui. Sally Kipyego has moved into 3rd ahead of Molly Huddle. So, and she's a further, she is 2:11 behind this leader who's gone through the 18-mile mark. So it'll be interesting to compare her 18-mile mark, or sorry, her next 2 miles to the course record split. The KO's course record 1:49.37 at 20 miles. So she's through 18 miles in 1:38.09. So I think on 20 miles that she's going to be inside the course record pace at the moment. So flying along at the moment, Mary Keitany. It's going to be really interesting if she's going to threaten the course record.
Yes, that course record set, 13 years ago now by Margaret Akeo. And Keitany looking to become yet another 3-time winner of this race, joining the great Abites and Paula Radcliffe, who's in New York to watch this race. And there you can see from that graphic at the bottom of the screen that now Keitany has opened up a lead of 53 seconds. Huddle there, almost 2.5 minutes in arrears. So through 18 kilometres, or 18 miles I should say, 26 miles, 385 yards, that is the full marathon distance. And Keitany with that familiar high arm carriage. As things stand, looking very strong indeed on quite a chilly, but a parky autumnal day. Barely a cloud in the sky, not much wind. Well, you're rejoining us here in New York City, and that is the view at the start line, which is now cleared. And there we are, now 15 miles up the course, on the way to the finish in Central Park, and 3 men are away. Lucas Rotic, Leisa Desisa, and Ghirmay Ghebreslassie, just 20, the world champion, who won that world title at the age of 19. And they have got a lead at 15 miles of about half a minute on the closest pursuer, who is Moses Kipsero. Abdirahman at the moment in 5th place, the leading American. Ritzenhein, the second of the Americans, is in 7th place. But we're not going to see an American winner, it would seem, of either the men's or the women's races. But Ghebreslassie looking very strong indeed, and he has played a huge role in fragmenting this leading group.
Yeah, the Eritrean looks very strong. So at the moment, Eritrea versus Kenya versus Ethiopia. So it's an African 3-way battle. And exactly as we said with the women's, this is the quietest part of the course. So then these guys, in terms of noise out on the course, this has been the noisiest section for splits. Inside 4 minutes and 30 for the mile, just going over the halfway point, and the last mile 4:45, and that's why there's a gap. Moses Kipsero was just over 5 minutes, and the chasing pack behind him. So the pace of the others really starting to slow, and that's why there are big gaps from our leading trio back to the chasers behind.
Rotic there at the front of the field on the right hand side, with Desisa back in 3rd place. And Rotic has got a very good pedigree, hasn't he? He's run sub 13 minutes for 5,000 metres, and if we go back to the 80s, well, the first man to ever break 13 minutes for that distance, Saida Wita, wasn't it? Going all the years back now to what was about 1987, I think. And Rotic is a sub 13-minute 5,000 metre man. He's broken 27 minutes for 10,000 metres, and that is incredibly fast. So Rotic, you would have thought he's looking a little bit uncomfortable there. That was just a slightly pained expression on his face. Rotic there in the middle of those 3. But the man who, well, trying to step out of the shadow of many better known men here. But Rotic, a winner of the Hamburg Marathon last year when he ran his lifetime best of 2:7:17, will never have a better opportunity than this. Ghebreslassie in 2nd place, the 20-year-old Desisa, who's got a tremendous record over the big city marathons, particularly in this part of the world, lying there in 3rd place. But you would have to think that the winner will come from this triumvirate.
Yeah, at the moment you'd have to think that, and you are right. Rotic just seems to keep grimacing, but I mean, trying to watch him, that does seem to be his style of running. So I won't read too much into that at the moment. So their splits, as I said, have increased, and it's going to be really interesting to see if the chasers behind can do anything about it, and whether these 3, or how long these 3 might stay together. So all 3 of them took advantage of the last drink station. So you have to say, the youngster at the front, the world champion, having a look at his watch, Ghebreslassie, and just checking his own splits or checking his own feel, and that gold chain going from side to side. I'd find that quite annoying, I think, if I had a gold chain like that.
Yes, they're up to about 2:08 pace now. And if you consider they're now, I'm sure, going to keep on winding it up, we may well get a winning time here in the 2:7, something like that, which I think on this particular course, when you consider that many of these athletes' fastest times are run in paced races and on courses which are regarded as being quicker than this, it's a 2:07:45:50, which may well compare favourably with a 2:06 elsewhere.
Absolutely, I think it really does. Make big comparisons, and maybe they could go slightly faster in some of the slightly faster courses, and obviously those races that have those pacemakers that the likes of London, the likes of Berlin put so much time and effort into. But then a lot of people are chasing qualifying times through the year, obviously the Olympics having gone. So the next qualifying window people will start to think about is for London 2017. But that's probably not on the minds of too many of these runners right now. As we look down at Mary Keitany, and she's gone through 31 kilometres. So we'll see if we can get an update on that split. So because it was very comparable, that 20 mile mark. We're looking to see if it gets towards the course record, and it's going to be very close to that. So at the moment, but it does look as if her cadence has dropped just slightly. So 5:24 last mile. So those last or those low 5-minute miles she was running, just look at her foot pate. It looks as if it's slowed down slightly, but she looks as if she maybe hit a slight incline, so that could be why.
Yes, although saying that, to give that some sort of context, at the last split, her cadence, her pace per mile was something like 22, 23 seconds faster than Molly Huddle. Huddle down in 4th place at the moment. So all the indications are that although we may be looking for 1 or 2 cracks in the armoury here of Mary Keitany, at the moment she's just continuing to open up that lead at the front. It's now up to 1:43 on Joyce Chepkarui. Sally Kipyego now in 3rd place. She's almost 3 minutes behind Keitany. Huddle in 4th, and she's 3.5 minutes behind in 4th place. So it is a huge gap.
And now they're coming into the Bronx. So the 5th of the boroughs reached over the Willis Avenue Bridge. And as I talked about her leg pace having dropped, there it goes. It picks back up. And look at that. She's looking in great shape out there. As you said, we could well be looking at someone going inside course record pace. And when you put that into context with the runners that we've had here over the years, Martin, the very best of the marathon runners in the world have been to New York. And the record stands at 2:21:31. So that really does show you the speed that Mary Keitany has covered after a very, very conservative 5K, first 5-kilometre split. So, and that alone was probably worth a minute or so if they'd have got the running act together quicker.
Well, we'll get some idea very soon as to whether she's actually on record pace. 1:58, 1:49 there at 20 miles at the moment. Be interesting to see the 35k split. 20 miles, 1:49:37 was the time of KO. So Keitany at the moment well within that.
She is. She's 35 seconds up on the record, but she did go pretty hard in that middle section. So it's going to be fascinating to see, and whether that famous wall that hits many of the marathon runners out there, can she keep this pace going for the last 6 miles and not just only write her name into the history books, becoming a 3rd-time winner, joining Paula Radcliffe and Greta Reitz, but to take the course record as well would be a very special achievement. And there's our leading men's trio on the screen: Rotic, Ghebreslassie and Tasisa. And at the moment, all 3 of them not looking in too much distress, just having a look at each other. And it is the 20-year-old at the front, the Eritrean Ghebreslassie. He's a 2:7 best this year in London. Being the world champion, I'm sure he would have wanted to have gone to Rio and come back with a medal. But that really is the quality of men's elite distance running at the moment. Eliud Kipchoge taking that gold medal, but the American Galen Rupp getting into the bronze medal position ahead of this man. And hasn't he bounced back quickly? Good recovery, obviously good planning, and here he is leading through the TCS New York City Marathon through the 27-kilometre mark.
And what a stunning atmosphere it is here. The wide avenues, the grid system of Manhattan, the avenues running the length of Manhattan, the streets running across. Tremendous crowds, 5 or 6 deep.
So still a lot of racing here to come. As As we get some good live feed from the lead vehicles. And there is nothing to choose between these three. As we see the chasers behind. Yamamoto in 6th. Dathan Rittenheim in 7th. Shadrik Biwott in 8th. And then a trio of Americans make up that top 10. And in good conditions today, and with a brisk first half, there could well be some good times for many of those runners in the chasing group. But as the shot pans back, you can see the 4th place runner is not in sight.
Yes, we're going to focus here on Lisa de Cisa. You can see Gebra Mariam there in the background, who's another former New York winner. De Cisa, who's got a tremendous record in this part of the world. Twice a winner of the Boston Marathon in 2013 and 2015. He won the Dubai Marathon in 2013, which was his debut. He's got a lifetime best when he won that race of 2:04.45. So De Cisa lying in 3rd place at the moment, who's got a tremendous record. So he's one who shouldn't be discounted, running, I think, what could be described as a fairly quiet race here.
Yeah, when you run 2:04 as a debut, age 22, I think he was at the time, that's pretty phenomenal running. So he's matured as a marathon runner as well. So we have seen a few of those runners that have popped out fast times from Dubai not back it up. But he has definitely been one of those that is getting very consistent. And he seems to get his peaking, he seems to get his racing bang on.
Yes, the Dubai Marathon, which traditionally almost starts off the calendar in this part of the world, doesn't it, very early on in the year. As we see the men's race on the left, Mary Keitany. Well, it is a race, but she's making it rather more a demonstration at the moment. And we'll keep an eye on that potential course record. She would appear to be heading in that direction at the moment. And it is a long-established record, Margaret Akeyo, going back to 2003, so 13 years ago. And this woman's career is quite stunning. She broke world records, or has broken world records. She still holds 1 or 2 as well. She won the Ras Al Khaimah half marathon, where she set the world record for that distance, the half marathon. And coming here now, perhaps for a 3rd victory. She would be the 3rd woman to do that after Greta Weitz and Paula Radcliffe.
So Keitany on our screen, and the next time check we'll look out for is the 35-kilometre split, and an average pace for the course record will be around 1:58.13. So we know she had 30 seconds at the 20-mile mark, so around about 5:30 for that last mile for Keitany. As the chasing group behind, you can see Kip Kirui in 2nd, Kipyego. Molly Huddle still holding out in 4th place in her debut. And maybe the fact she's come up against someone running at course record pace and was running considerably faster than that for a large section of that, and Molly Huddle tried to go with that pace.
Yes, that 35-kilometre split, we expect her to go through that in round about 2 minutes' time, so it will be instructive. And that is a pace time, so in other words, if we work on the basis of her running even kilometres throughout the race, which of course nobody does, particularly in New York, so it will only be a guide. That said, the nature of the New York course would rather suggest that if she's ahead of that time, then certainly, as things stand, she's very much ahead of the schedule. But we'll see that with Mary Keitany. The context of the race, though, is that she's out on her own. She's been out on her own for quite a while now, and she will, of course, have to run those remaining 7 kilometres and a little more on her own as well.
And look at the Kenyan dominance on the screen there. 7 of the last 8 champions. So, and it looks as if Mary Keitany is going to add to that, but more of a challenge in the men's race at the moment, An Eritrean and an Ethiopian are there, trying to put an end to a part of that dominance anyway. So, and Stanley Biwot's defence of his title ended around about the 15-kilometre mark today. So he'll have to go back to the drawing board and see what his next marathon venture might be. But the gap back to Joyce Kikuri is now 2 minutes and 38 seconds.
Still the leading triumvirate in the men's race, locked together. Rotich, Ghebreslassie out in front, and then you can see back in third there is the Ethiopian Elisa Desisa.
So they've gone through 18 miles, 1:27.09, and the last mile 4:37. So maintaining that pace and taking 30 seconds per mile out of the chaser. Moses Kipsiro is one of those chasers, and at the moment they are almost 2 minutes behind, and that happened so quickly, didn't it, Martin? So that big group together at halfway, and then just in 5 miles they put 2 minutes on the chasers behind.
Yes, according to our information, if you go back those 2 minutes, Kipsiro Abdirahman and Yamamoto, the Japanese, running together in 4th, 5th and 6th places. So, a leading 3, and then almost 2 minutes back to a chasing 3. Ghebreslassie, Rotich and Desisa. And unless something quite dramatic happens, the winner of this year's New York Marathon will come from the 3 on the screen at the moment. They've got something like another 37, 38 minutes to go.
Yeah, and all 3 of them safely negotiate the drink station there. You can see the concentration on their faces and the will to get their bottles, as we know it can be the difference between finishing the marathon altogether. So they're in there, all 3 of them get their bottles. Rotich holds on for his a little bit longer. So they'll be made up with different concoctions of carbohydrates and things to help them with their recovery as they go through this stage of the race. They need to get that fuel on board. And they're around about the 29 kilometres mark, 1 hour 31 on the clock. And who's going to lose their patience first, Martin?
Yeah, it's very difficult to tell at the moment, isn't it? Very difficult to pick between any of those 3. I've got some news from the women's race, and we can tie ourselves in knots with statistics and numbers and splits and times, but if we work on the basis that the Margaret Okeo record was even paced, if we talk about an even pace race, an even tempo, 35 kilometres for record pace is 1:58.13. Now, Keitany came through that split in quite a bit slower than that, 1:58.38. So we're talking about an even pace race, and there you can see the course record being mentioned there by the host broadcaster, 2:22.31. Well, it could go either way, in all honesty, because we found certain statistics which can support the fact she's on her way to a course record. Maybe I've just quoted one which says she might not be. But really, when it gets down, it's as simple as what happens in the next half hour or so.
Yeah, exactly. It only takes one sort of bad mile and that pace could slip off. At the moment, she's there or thereabouts the course record pace. She knows she's got the victory, so she's not really racing, I don't think, against anyone behind. So, and also it's whether she's aware of the course record. Remember that
I was going to make
famous
that point.
case of Steve Jones, where he didn't quite know how close he was to the world record at the time. But it's whether she knows she's close to the course record. There is obviously time bonuses and an actual financial incentive for her to beat the course record. So, but whether she's got that on her mind, that'll be another thing.
And also whether she does have any support on the road passing her any sort of information at all. And of course, sometimes when you get information from the side of the road, it's not necessarily the most reliable. So you'll have athletes, even when they're hearing it, sometimes, unless it's coming from a particularly trusted source, won't know whether to believe it or not. Anyway, That is pure speculation on our part.
Well, some of the major city marathons do have the rolling scoreboards on the lead trucks showing the athletes, but we wouldn't be able to see that ourselves, and you wouldn't be able to see it at home either. So they may be aware of it, but she could well be running slightly in the dark, and she doesn't seem to have a watch on either. So it'll be interesting to see when she does get right down to the last few miles, whether she does think about picking the pace up, or whether it's a case of just enjoying it and taking that third victory.
Stunning tempo the men are running at. Run about 4:48, 4:49 a mile at the moment. And there is the gap. So suddenly 3 becomes 2, and it's Desisa, the man who's won this won races in this part of the world twice before, who's dropped, and now just the sense that Ghebreslassie are taking full advantage and opening up a gap on Rotic as well. So Ghebreslassie, the youngster, the world champion, and Rotic, well, the expression pained, although we do have to make the point that it's not the first time we've seen a look like that, but the indicators are here that Ghebreslassie is looking strong, he's feeling strong, and look at Desisa now, he's almost standing up, isn't he, on that slight climb, and really things have fallen apart for the Ethiopian, and Ghebreslassie, he's got his head down, he's working hard, and he's now making his bid for victory.
Well, Desisa, it looked as if within about 2 strides he went from being pretty comfortable to looking around to then almost stopped up that hill. So he's got a long way to go if he's in trouble. So over 10 kilometres of running still to go. And again, look how relaxed and cool and calm this guy is for 20 years of age. And this is fantastic running, and answers the big question of Rotic as well. And Rotic is the only one that tried to respond, but that gap is really, really increasing by every single stride.
And every time he runs past someone, even if it's perhaps somebody who's struggling just a little bit in the women's race, he'll get a little lift as he goes past on this part of the course, which you can see there is quite a rise. And he just takes a look over his shoulder there, and the confidence just grows. He puts his head down, he picks up the cadence even more, and this is an athlete who's feeling very, very at ease with himself.
He's a great mover. Look how compact he is. And we know he ran the Olympic marathon, but it could well be the fact that he's looks like he's well built in relation to marathon running, and that recovery, obviously it pays to be 20 years of age and recover that way. And at the moment, that leg pace on that downhill section, and Desisa isn't even in shot there, is he? He's dropped a massive amount, and I'd be really surprised if we see him finishing now.
And I know it's becoming more and more of a feature with marathon running, but this man is running his 3rd major marathon of 2016. Ghirmay Ghebreslassie has made his bid for victory, and he's dropped his 2 rivals. And perhaps the only surprise is the speed and ease with which Ghebreslassie has moved clear. He's looking very, very strong indeed. 4th in the London Marathon, 4th in the Olympic Marathon. Now, well, it looks like he's heading for victory in the New York Marathon.
Yeah, he's just gone through 20 miles in 1:36.45. So that second 10-mile split, 47.45. So that's why a big increase in pace. 4:48 for that last mile. He's taken 6 seconds out of Lucas Rotic just in that last mile. And Rotic is still running very well. And it's looking for our screen to see whether there's Desisa's gone through, and he's lost 42 seconds in that last mile. So the wheels have come off, and 6 miles to go. They've gone from Manhattan into the Bronx.
To lose 42 seconds in a mile when you're running 4:48 miles, well, look, in terms of fractions, that is a massive amount of time.
Oh, it is. It's a huge amount. And I think that, well, the damage has been done. I can't see there being any comeback there for Desisa. He's done. As we go back to Keitany, and she looks as if she is slightly struggling. That cadence has dropped. It looked like that on the hill earlier, but now she's on the flat. She's at the 37-kilometre mark. And at the moment, her last mile split we're looking for to see if she is still on the course record, about 5:35. So she's there or thereabouts. 2 hours and 7 on the clock. So she's inside the last 5 kilometers of running now. And this is where it's really going to start to hurt Martin.
Yes, well, she's been on her own for a long, long time now. And this is where the real undulations will start kicking in. When she turns off 5th Avenue, turns right into the park, and then the undulations, which are very difficult to appreciate on the television, but they are certainly there. And she has got to fight her way through and up and over those if she's to stand a chance of taking this course record. It's 13 years old, the mark set by Margaret Akeyo, fellow Kenyan. 2:22.31. Meanwhile, back down the road, and Ghebreslassie, well, he looks like he's just sort of slipped his shoes on, stepped out of the kitchen door, and started running. Doesn't look like a man who's been running at 4:45, 4:50 schedule for, what, an hour and 40 minutes or something. It's a stunning performance at the moment from this fella.
Yeah, he's looking absolutely phenomenal out there. And that power through those quads of his, you can just see that, how compact he is as well. And one thing has been really visible is how concentrated he's been for the whole time, which for 20 years of age is, you know, that's a phenomenal thing to have under your armour, is to be that focused and that controlled, because that's what the marathon's about. You can't let emotions get to you too much in the marathon, and that's one thing that he hasn't. And obviously he would have been disappointed from the Olympics, and you can almost see that focus in his eyes here, determined, having finished 4th in London, 4th in Rio, that he was not coming to New York and coming 4th.
Well, I think we're going to see some movement in the women's race as well, with Joyce Chepkarui now slipping outside, 6-minute mile pace. She's being caught by Sally Kipyego, and if Kipyego continues the progress that she's making at the moment, well, she will be past Chepkarui in the next mile or so. Molly Huddle at the moment, well, she's picked up the schedule just a little bit, hasn't she? She is almost running at the same tempo as Keitany now. So this is quite encouraging for Huddle. They're in 4th.
Yeah, she could well challenge now for a place on the podium. It'll be very interesting the next few minutes of running for Molly Huddle, if she can get on the back of Sally Kipyego, who's also moving through. Joyce Kipkarui, who went with that pace early on, is now starting to really struggle. And so is Lucas Rotich. That grimace, it's getting even more obvious now. You could see it earlier on, but he's still got a fairly big gap back to the 3rd place behind. But the ease of our leader out there, Ghebreslassie, as he overtakes another one of the elite women that started earlier. And he'll be using these, you're right, Martin, he'll be using these as little checkpoints, and there'll be people for him to pick off.
Yes, isn't it amazing how swiftly time passes? Ghirmay Ghebreslassie wasn't a year old when Josiah Tagwani won the Olympic title in Atlanta in 1996. Ghebreslassie, now already crowned world champion, just missed out on an Olympic medal in Rio, and now on his way to what will be his first major city marathon triumph. A real landmark achievement, and he's still just 20. Keitany, well, her margin of supremacy is 3.5 minutes and more, pushing on for 4 minutes. The only challenge for her now is, can she go on and run this course record? It appears to be getting tougher and tougher and tougher, if the truth be known.
Yeah, 5:44 for that last mile, so slightly slipping outside. The projected time at 40 kilometres is 2:15.06. So that's what we're looking for, if she can get towards that. I don't quite think she's got enough wheels to be able to pick the pace up. I think that race is run, but if she is there or thereabouts, then maybe she can just find something in that last 2 kilometres.
Yes, you get a sense that maybe this is a time which is slipping rather closer to 2:24 than 2:22.5. It's becoming a bit of a struggle. We shall see, but Keitany, without a doubt, well, she can almost walk home from here. Such is her lead. It's 3.5, 4 minutes. It's growing all the time. She still remains the fastest woman on the road.
And there's the hills you talked about in Central Park. They will not be greeted by the marathon legs with a happy bit of pace as she comes off there. As you can see on her face, a little bit of pain in the face, and she's trying to use those arms now on the downhill section, and that's sometimes as hard as going uphill towards the end of the marathon. Everything about the legs will be screaming to her to keep moving, and she will just want to see that final stretch coming into sight, and she can really enjoy it. She's going to be part of history now. As you can see on the right, the women's leader, and on the left, our men's leader. And both of them are giving us a fantastic display, Martin, of distance running.
Yes, they're also seeing New York at its absolute best, aren't they? The autumn colours, stunning in Central Park. It has been a very good day. It's a race which, meteorologically speaking, has had its troubles in recent years. The 2012 race, quite literally blown into extinction. But today, pretty cool at the start, below 10 degrees centigrade. So, Mary Keitany, slowing just a little, but well on her way to taking the New York Marathon.
She is, and this will be a sight familiar to many tourists. This is where most people get their runs done in New York, around Central Park. Thousands upon thousands of people there daily, whether you run morning, noon or night, around the different trails, around the different loops. And this man's still got that sight to come as he continues to extend his lead. Ghebreslassie of Eritrea. He's gone through 35 kilometres, 1:45.17. The gap 21 seconds. In fairness to Rotich, he's held that gap. It's not, the elastic hasn't totally snapped, so he can only hope maybe that the youngster goes through a tough spot himself. But he's getting inside 5 minutes per mile as well. So this has been a good run by Lucas Rotich.
Oh, it certainly has. The man who we've talked about his great range of distances, being a sub 13-minute man at 5Ks, sub 27 at 10Ks, and good half marathon times, and now coming out here and making a really good job of a major city marathon. And he's not entirely beaten yet. Those undulations through Central Park, if one or two cracks have opened even before Ghebreslassie gets in there, well, he could be catchable, just perhaps, although at the moment it's worth making the point that his last split, he still ran 3 minutes for that last mile faster than Ghebreslassie. So, according to the splits, that gap is still just opening up.
Yeah, he's edging away just gradually. And again, even past the 22-mile mark, making sure he gets his drink on board. On the screen, Mary Keitany throwing in 16 minutes 17 for the full 5K split, 16:30 for the 5K split after that. So she broke that field up, and the time now has slipped outside what we think is the course record time. And your prediction of getting towards the 2:24 could well be right, Martin. So she's lost about a minute in that last split. As you can see, she isn't racing against anyone. So that damage was done in that middle section. And I hope she really enjoys it now.
Yeah, and running, even if it does slip to 2:24, doing that in an unpaced race when she's run so much of this race on her own is quite a significant achievement.
It is when you take into account that first 5 kilometre split being 18:40. I mean, take a minute off that and they could well be getting very close to the course record without having to run as hard in the middle. So, but without pacemakers,
and
yes.
the quality of the athletes is such that they could have run at that stage a minute faster and not really taken any more out of themselves.
Absolutely, really agree with that.
So Keitany, it's a lonely run, and perhaps one that by now she would rather wish comes to a rapid end, but she must try and enjoy this.
Well, she'll be looking for Columbus Circle, won't she? And she'll be thinking about the 2 times previous to this where she's had that opportunity to come up that home straight. And she's a seasoned pro now, so I'm sure she does appreciate every single marathon victory. And this one will be really special. As I said, it puts her along the likes of Paula Radcliffe, Greta Weitz as 3 or more times winners. And so she's in an elite club. And there she is making a turn on to 5th Avenue.
Well, Ghebreslassie, you can see the pursuer in the background, but it's still a very handy lead indeed. Lucas Rotich, 2:7:17 his lifetime best. He's not going to improve that here, but what he will do is produce a major city marathon to sit alongside his Hamburg Marathon victory from last year, and the sort of performance we've seen here from Lucas Rotich is going to make him a very attractive signing for other major city marathons over the course of the next 12 months. So both in terms of his reputation and commercial value, this is a performance that will enhance him greatly.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see whether he goes back to defend his world title in London and whether that's something that is attractive to him. It'd be great to see him on the streets of London in the World Championships. He's obviously been there as part of the London Marathon, and again, could well see him back there in April, looking to run maybe a super fast time. So there's no reason why you can't see him being one of the ones to challenge for that world record.
Yes, I guess the only concern about this fella's career is he's won a world title at 19. He's run 3 very demanding marathons this year. I mean, let's not forget the Olympic marathon in Rio. Came 4th there. It only seems like a matter of weeks ago. Ran very fast in London back in April. There comes a point, and I know marathon running has moved on, and in terms of the preparation of athletes, it's not like the old days when many world-class marathon runners said, right, it's 1 hard marathon every year. They can now run 2, and as we can see, 3. But at the age of 20, he wants to leave something in the legs, doesn't he?
Oh, absolutely. You know, you're right. You know, how many marathons can you do? They often talk about marathon runners being like boxers. How many prize fights can you have before you get a bit punch drunk? But, well, hopefully they do give him a bit of a holiday. Hopefully he goes and puts his feet up on a beach somewhere, because the way he's running at the moment, he's definitely someone to look out for. And, yeah, with him being so young and so raw still, that I can only see him improving over the next 4, 5, 6 years and beyond.
Well, as predicted, Sally Kipyego has moved into 2nd place, although she's almost now 4 minutes behind Mary Keitany. Joyce Chepkarui is down in 3rd place. Molly Huddle, who's making ground here on Chepkarui, and the indications are that I think Huddle might well find herself running into 3rd spot by the time she gets to Central Park. But Mary Keitany really looking very, very strong indeed. So she's been running now for just a little more than 2 hours and 22 minutes. So that course record has gone, but it's still been a quite superb performance.
So she's gone past Columbus Circle. She's now going on to West Drive on her way home. And that'll be a welcome sight, Martin.
Yes, it certainly is there, the stride shortening. But she's had a long, long time on her own, and certainly in terms of modern marathon running, this is a woman you would put over the course of the last 20 years comfortably into the top 10. No doubt about that. Great record of consistency, 3 New York marathons. I mean, that really does put her among the greats here. As we were saying, the only woman to have won more great events.
So 2 hours 23, 30 seconds on the clock. She's outside course record, but she's on her way to take the 2016 TCS New York City Marathon title in dominant fashion, Martin.
Yes, and even a little bit of a climb there as she makes her way towards the finish, and it's probably going to be outside 2:24 now, isn't it? So Mary Keitany will win her 3rd New York Marathon, just outside 2:24. It has been an outstanding performance. She has put plenty of clear blue water between herself and the rest of the field. Keitany, the Queen of New York, not once, not twice, but now 3 times.
And that hurt at the end. You can tell that incline on West Drive, every single stride was hurting. And there's her family, and they travel with her to the races, and they're a great little family unit, and they'll be absolutely delighted. And
there
so
actually is the widower of Greater Vites, just behind the boards as well.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll recognise a great marathon runner in Mary Keitany. Draped in the Kenyan flag. And behind her, there's going to be a fascinating battle for the other podium finishes. Molly Huddle was starting to really move through, and whether she can get onto that podium in her debut. She seems to have stuck to her task out there after a tough middle section. Joyce Kipkurui going with that pace, and she could well now find herself outside of the top 3. As Keitany soaking up the atmosphere. So great atmosphere down there at the finish line.
Well, it's still a long way back now to the followers. Sally Kipyego at the last split was 4 minutes behind Keitany. She will be the next through. And I guess the other issue to be resolved is, can Molly Huddle get herself into 3rd place? And there is Huddle, and she's actually catching up Kipyego. So Huddle, I think it's fair to say, went through a pretty tough patch in the middle of the race, but is going to finish 3rd here. It's been a good performance in the end from Huddle.
It has, and also a good run by Kipyego, who didn't finish last year, and she's come back this year, and she's going to finish potentially in 2nd place, unless Molly Huddle can find another gear. But Sally Kipyego isn't slow either. She's no slouch. An Olympic silver medalist from London, over 10,000 metres. So, but there's plenty of time for Mary Keitany to soak in the applause of the New York crowd. Here's Sally Kipyego, based over in Eugene in Oregon, I believe coached by Mark Rowland.
She's another athlete with a very fair track record as well, having finished 2nd in the 10,000 metres at the Olympic Games in London back in 2012, and repeated the dose at the World Championships.
And Huddle's trying to give chase, but she's chasing a woman that's run 14:30 for 5K. I think she's going to run out of road. And Kipyego is going to take 2nd place. The Kenyan is going to finish just outside 2:28. So having run here last year, not finished, to come back in 2016 dust herself off. She's going to hold off Molly Huddle, who's going to finish in 3rd place. That's a pretty solid debut, that, Martin, on the New York course. 2:28 for Molly Huddle.
Yes, it'll be interesting to see what her next move is, whether she will continue on the road with a campaign for another big city marathon, perhaps in the springtime. But Molly Huddle there coming through in 3rd place. And in the end, perhaps not quite the fairy tale that many American followers would have liked, but still a very competent performance. Celebrate. Ghirmay Ghebreslassie still looking very, very strong. And he's now inside the last mile and just a little bit more of this men's marathon. And when you consider his 3rd big marathon of the year, 4th in London, 4th at the Olympic Games in Rio, and now I think he got some news in terms of his time, because in terms of his own personal records, he may well rewrite those as well.
Yeah, he's going to be super close to his own personal best, set in London, 2:07.46. He's gone through 25 miles in 2:01.38. So he's got just under a mile now, but his pace is slightly dropping, and it does look like he's got no challenges from behind. So very, very similar to Mary Keitany. But if he continues at this pace, he should be inside 2:08, and yeah, would be a new personal best to boot with becoming the 2016 New York City Marathon champion.
His last marathon, his last mile, I should say, I'll get it out eventually, running 5:22. So when you consider how many miles they were clocking at around about 4:48, 4:50, 4:52, yes, the topography of the final couple of miles here, the undulations of Central Park, the end of a race, of course, beginning to tell, but he has dropped something like half a minute off the tempo that he was clocking something like half an hour or 40 minutes ago when he really was kicking hard. And there is Rotich in 2nd place, just passing some of the women towards the back of the women's elite field. But Rotich now something like 50 seconds behind Ghebreslassie, in fact 56 seconds behind him with 1 mile to go. That is the official distance or time gap between these two men at the moment.
Yeah,
First
we don't know who's in 3rd either, do we, at the moment? So I reckon big changes in 3rd behind, so as they gave chase. So Rotich also through, and it's an American battle, Martin, isn't it, for 3rd and 4th at the moment?
Yes, men of African origin, though. Abdi Rahman and Shadrach Biwott in 3rd and 4th places. Abdi Rahman, the last time we saw when they were coming through 24 miles, which is what, round about 5 or 6 minutes ago, they were, well, Abdi Rahman in 3rd with an advantage of something like 18 seconds on Biwott, who was there in 4th place. Yamamoto, the Japanese, in 6th. Kipsero is in 7th place, and Tyler Pennell, the American, has moved into 8th. Patrick Smith in 9th. Ben Payne in 10th. So there is actually quite a prominent American showing, although I think it's fair to say that none of them have really got a blow in, and Dathan Ritzenhein, well, no sign of him, I'm afraid.
Yeah, he'll be disappointed, having put in a great build-up into this, and much of the media attention was based around that, especially that run at the Great North Run, but not to be for Ritzenhein, but it is for the man on the left of the screen. And we've only 4 athletes that have ever gone inside 2:08 on this course. Just noticed him wave to the crowd a few times and kind of soak it in, so he might be slipping just outside that. But that does show the real quality of his run, and especially from that halfway mark when, well, the hammer was thrown down and the pace really did start to go from those 4-minute 50 miles to those 4.5-minute miles. So there's our leader on the screen. And he's coming down that west drive. The Eritrean, Ghebreslassie, 20 years of age, the world champion. And now he's going to become the New York City Marathon champion.
Yes, I can tell you that Hiroyuki Yamamoto has moved into 4th place. The Japanese, Abdi Rahman, is now in 3rd. And it would appear that Abdi Rahman is safe for 3rd place unless something cracks quite hopelessly in this final mile. Rotich slowing down dramatically. now running outside 5.5 minutes a mile. But Ghebreslassie still clipping along at 5:22, something like that a mile. And he is putting in a very strong performance indeed. It's been a tremendous run from this man. Just to repeat the fact, world champion in Beijing a little more than 12 months ago, and since then this is his third marathon. Fourth twice in London at the Olympics in Rio, and now here in New York, and who knows, it could be a lifetime best.
Well, his 21st birthday is on the 14th of November, so I'm sure he can have a good celebration on that day. And as he turns his attention to that finishing pavilion, he'll be getting great support from the crowd. There's Lukas Rotic. It's been a hard, business-like last few miles for him. He stuck to his guns well, though, because it would have been easy, wouldn't it, once that pace picked up and when he really did start to struggle. And that's been the best part of 5-6 miles, that he's toughed through that, and he's going to be rewarded, unless I don't think the chasers behind will get anywhere near Rotic for second, and they're definitely not going to get anywhere near this guy. Phenomenal second half here in New York today.
Well, it's going to be very, very close indeed to his lifetime best. This is that last climb, the last painful climb, leaning forward, trying to pick up the cadence. Moment for celebration. Ghirmay Ghebreslassie of Eritrea is going to take the New York Marathon title. 2:07:43:44. It's going to be just outside his lifetime best. But at the age of 20, well, I think it's fair to say, plenty of time in the future to put that right. Ghebreslassie is the New York champion. He becomes just a second runner to win both the world title and the New York City Marathon after Douglas Wakihuri. He became world champion in '87, won the New York title 3 years later. Well, it's taken this fella just a little more than 12 months to do the same.
And he's the 5th fastest of all time on this course, and even had time to blow some kisses and wave to the crowd in that finishing straight. And there is Lukas Rotic. He's going to be very close to the 2:09 mark, and they're still running. Look at that. He's going to run past and see the athlete in second, and that's really great to see. A high five between the two. The winner and the runner-up, Lukas Rotic, second place at the 2016 New York City Marathon.
So there is the winner. Rotic comes through in second place. So the first two men through the line. And I think we're going to celebrate another American and another third place. Abdirahman should be the next man through, still waiting for confirmation of that winning time, but it will be just outside his lifetime best, somewhere just inside 2:08. I can tell you now that time has come through, 2:07:51. The winning time for Ghirmay Ghebreslassie. Lukas Rotic, 2:08:53, so 62 seconds, just outside a minute behind the champion. And they will indeed be the only two men to come through inside 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah, big gaps to the third and fourth runners, and there's still a lot happening between those, so it'll be interesting to see who gets the third spot.
So Abdirahman, we're still waiting for him to come through, and here he is. 200 metres to go for the man who's proved to be the leading American, looking in a fair degree of discomfort. He can be running somewhere just outside 2:11, I would have thought. But Abdirahman, the United States, will pick up their third place of the day in New York.
and impressive for the 38-year-old, and he does seem to have been around for forever. So again, to be on the podium here, it's going to be just outside 2:11.
So here he is, Abdi Rahman. Becomes a leading American. And he gets his own finish funnel as a result of that. So, the first American.
I think you can safely say he's happy with that.
Yes, one of the senior citizens of American road running. And he even delivers a commercial message. So a chance to reflect on the race. Conditions absolutely superb. Looking there, you can see just nothing but blue skies. Bit of chill in the morning at the start, but it has been a tremendous New York Marathon. Mary Keitany becomes a three-time winner. This young man at the age of 20, Ghebreslassie. Today's start, tomorrow's star, I would have thought, for quite a time. What a performance from him. Americans finishing third in both the men's and women's races. Your thoughts?
Well, it's been a phenomenal day so far. It's still just started for a lot of the runners out there on the course. Marcel Hoog was phenomenal, and so was Tanya McFadden. But those two elite women's and elite men's races, phenomenal to see. Two dominant displays, as we see highlights from the action earlier from today. Early start, and the race in the men's wheelchair competition coming down to a sprint for the line. 1 second separating Marcel Hoog from Kurt Fanley.
Well, there you can see Marcel Hoog just prevailing ahead of Kurt Fernley. And those the first men across the line on a day which in the end belonged to Mary Keitany, three-time winner of the women's race. From us, bye-bye.